Hello, my name is Cheyenne Cohn-Postel, and I'm one of the program officers with the Communities Initiative team at Mass Cultural Council. Please avail yourselves of the closed captions for this video today if you'd like to use them by clicking the CC button at the bottom of the video. Today, I want to take the time to introduce you to the other members of our team. We have myself, as well as our program manager, Lisa Simmons, our Cultural Districts Program Officer, Carolyn Cole, our program officer that also works the festivals and projects program, Timothea Pham, my partner in crime on this webinar, Greg Torales, the program officer, Jay Wong, and our newest addition to the team, Summers Smith. You can find our contact information and a list of municipalities and who their Mass Cultural Council staff contact is. The agenda for today is to give you a little bit of information about Mass Cultural Council as an agency, and then focus in on the local cultural council, what it is, who is eligible, what kind of projects are funded by the program, the elements of the grant criteria for the program or review criteria for the program, a snapshot of the grant cycle timeline, and then we'll go through the tips and resources for the program. There will also be a step-by-step set of instructions on how to register in the system, as well as another video walking you through the actual application in our grants management system. So Mass Cultural Council is a state arch agency. We are funded by the local legislature, the NEA, and a percentage of the gaming revenue that comes in to Massachusetts. We both give direct grants to our own individuals and organizations, as well as offering services to the sector and creating partnerships for change with other agencies. And today we'll be talking about the Mass Cultural Council's program, the Local Cultural Council, which is a allocation to municipalities that they can then regrant to their communities. The Local Cultural Council program has 329 LCCs, as we call them, that serve our 351 Massachusetts cities and towns. So we have 2,400 volunteers all the way across the state at any time, serving across our 329 local cultural councils. One of the best things about the program is that it gives these local cultural councils autonomy to set their own priorities and guidelines, accept the kinds of projects that are right for their community. And Mass Cultural Council's role is really just guidance and support. This slide and our website will give you more information on the statute, the legislative statute that created the program, and some of our key milestones in history. To move into eligibility, applicants must reside in Massachusetts. So for individuals, you must be a Massachusetts resident. For organizations, your legal address must be a Massachusetts address. And applicants must also show that there is a public benefit that results from their projects, meaning that things like fundraisers, events for closed membership clubs, events that are only open to children enrolled in a program have a little less public benefit than things that are just free and open to the public because there is a very limited and very specific audience. So those are two things to keep in mind. The local cultural council funds Massachusetts programming, and it funds programming with a public benefit to their community. LCCs may accept applications from individuals, which include sole proprietors, incorporated nonprofit organizations, unincorporated organizations, incorporated for-profit organizations, which includes corporations and LLCs, and tribal, federal, state, and municipal government entities. Religious organizations are not prohibited from being eligible for an LCC grant, but the grants cannot go towards promoting religion in any way that includes teaching and proselytizing. For project eligibility, there's a very wide breadth of what kind of projects can be funded by LCCs. Grant funds received from an LCC cannot be used to purchase alcohol of any kind, but they can be used to underwrite trips, to cover class tuition, to put on a street fair. The list goes on, and you're able to check each LCC's individual page and see the last year's funding list to get an idea of what's happening. Grant amounts vary by each LCC. We have created a minimum grant amount of $250 per grant, but the typical range is between $500 and $750, but I have also seen grants go up to $1,500. So anywhere between $250 and $1,500, depending on the amount requested in the application, and the amount of money that the local cultural council has to grant, their restrictions and priorities and guidelines, and how many applications they get. So grant amounts do very, very much vary. But the timeline to go along with the wide breadth of events that you could have, the timeline that your event can take place within is also very wide. It's an 18-month window. So you can apply to our local cultural councils for the FY25 cycle for events that happen between July 1st of 2024 all the way to December 31st of 2025. The next set of criteria is actually, we'll go over criteria now. LCCs use the first three criteria points I'm going to talk about below for all grant decisions. The fourth point is the one that varies from local cultural council to local cultural council. So the first criteria point is arts, humanities, and sciences. Second is public benefit, which I mentioned. The third is non-discrimination. And the last bit of criteria would be the preferences and guidelines that are specific to the LCC. And just a note here that guidelines and priorities are different. You'll notice a lot of vocabulary: guidelines, priorities, criteria, review, and all this to say that your events need to have public benefit. They need to incorporate the arts, humanities, and sciences, and they need to adhere to non-discrimination policies. But there also might be things at the local level that you need to have, and that will give you priority, but are not necessary to be funded. So just want to point out that nuance, that you want to make sure you know what is required versus what is just a priority point and might bump you up. So for arts, humanities, and sciences, LCC funds may only be used to support programs in the arts, humanities, and sciences. Arts refers to creating work in the arts, crafts, performing, visual, media, folk, design, literary, and disciplinary arts. The humanities are types of learning that deal with human values and aspirations, human thought and culture, language and creativity. And the sciences are limited to its cultural, interpretive, and educational expression, and refers to types of learning that deal with nature, science, and technology in ways that explains how they relate to people's lives. So this is a requirement that LCC funds be used in some way that focuses on the arts, humanities, and sciences. Next, we have public benefit. LCC funds must support activities that contribute to the cultural vitality of the community rather than benefit any private individual or group. A key public benefit component is advancing diversity, equity, inclusion, and access. And a lot of public benefit is up to the LCC's interpretation. What benefits one community might not benefit another, and the needs of one community might not be met with a program that helps another. So a lot of public benefit is about enriching the lives of the people in the community by using arts, humanities, and interpretive sciences to make them feel seen, heard, and reflected. Next, we have non-discrimination. LCC-funded projects must abide by anti-discrimination laws. The ADA, or Americans with Disabilities Act, requires that persons with disabilities have equal access to programs or services as the general public. LCC-funded projects must consider access for people with disabilities, including the facility, event location, and the program's content. A good way to start is to check out the NEA's Accessibility Planning and Resource Guide for Culture Administrators. It's a great way to know what the beginning, middle, and I'll just say more advanced versions of accessibility look like. This requirement, I think, a lot of times is scary to people because they think it means that you cannot be funded if your venue is not physically accessible, or that you have to get ASL interpretation for your event. And there are a lot of options about how to make your events accessible. And the ones that matter are the ones that serve your community specifically. So please take a look at that guide, that resource guide. Please reach out to our ADA coordinator, Charles Baldwin, and look through the other resources that we have available, like our access page on the Mass Cultural Council website. And finally, we'll go through local criteria. LCCs publish local criteria on their council profiles. The local priorities help applicants identify what LCCs are looking to fund, and the local guidelines are local application instructions or restrictions. Council profiles include the LCC's mission, objective, contact information, and social media profiles if they have one. It includes their local priorities and local guidelines if they have them. If they do not have anything in those sections, they rely on the universal guidelines for this program. In the council profile includes the LCC's grant payment type. There's either reimbursement or direct granting. If you have reimbursement as a barrier to producing your project, and that's something that you want to check before you invest the time in applying to that council. And as I said before, the council profile lists the last year's, so in this case, FY24 projects that they have funded and the amount. So you can get some information about what the council has deemed important to their community in the past. And these pages include contact information for a reason. We always want you to reach out to your LCC and find out any information that could be helpful to you. We want you to be successful and knowledgeable in the process. I'll move on to our grant timeline. So we are currently in the first phase. Our LCCs have updated their priorities and guidelines, contact info, and grant payment type on the websites. The application is open, and our next deadline will be October 16th at 11:59 p.m. when the application closes. In November, in October, but in November, the LCCs will be reviewing the applications and holding their voting meetings to decide what is eligible and what isn't eligible, which applications will be accepted and denied, and the amount that the applications will be funded. And after those denial letters and contracts and things go out, applicants that were unsuccessful can request reconsideration if that is something that they think is relevant and necessary for them. And on January 16th, LCCs report on their grant decisions. That is not something that as an applicant is very important, but for our LCC members who are also learning from this session, this is a good reminder that your grant decision reports are due on the 16th. And then through January through March is really notifications and processing reimbursement and payments. So if you have more questions on the timeline, please reach out to your local cultural council specifically, but you want to get your application and any supplemental materials that your council has listed on their council page under their guidelines that you need to submit to have a full application. So please look into that and make sure that you're not starting on the 15th because you have to log in as well as finish the application and upload your materials. We are not going to go through it right now in this video, but you will have access to the step-by-step instructions for logging into the grants management system. We always encourage you, if you don't know your username and password immediately, to start with the forgot password button. There are pathways for if you already have an account, and if you don't have an account and you're an individual, or you don't have an account and you're an organization. So all of that information is there. And we also have another video available for you that is just a walkthrough of the GMS system once you have logged in, where to find things in the beginning and after you've started an application, as well as going through and just reading through the questions in the eligibility quiz and the application itself. And lastly, here we just have some tips and resources for you in this process. As I said, start early and do your research. There are a lot of things to know and there are a lot of things to find out, and there are a lot of things to do before you finally hit submit. We have sample applications available, so feel free to work offline and make sure you have all of your information and can paste it into the system instead of putting things into the system and then hoping to remember to click save. As we've said, reach out to LCC members, and Mass Cultural Council staff are also here for you as well. Reach out to partners and host venues. That is a very common addition to local guidelines and priorities as a partnership. And create a realistic budget. Think about, in the application, you will see that we ask both about your budget and prospective income for the event. So really think that through, not only with what you're requesting, but the information that you provide about the event holistically, especially if they are not the same amount. Your resources are the universal guidelines for the LCC program. We also have links here for the local guidelines and priorities. We have an FAQ for applicants of a lot of questions that we have gotten over the years about the program. And we also have an at a glance page that will give you programs, the Mass Cultural Council direct programs from this year. Thank you for joining me today. I hope that I have convinced you that you have everything you need to apply to your local cultural council. I hope that I have interested you so much that you are considering serving as a member of your local cultural council, because you can do that and still apply for grants. They are not mutually exclusive positions, applicant and LCC member. There are things that you have to do, disclosures and recusals, but we want more people to be involved in the LCC member program because we enjoy your insight and want you to be able to really work on your connection and make your community what you'd like it to be. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us at communities@mass.gov. Thank you so much and have a great rest of your day.